You're watching the Autos 360 Network.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. You are watching SST Sunday Night Live. And tonight we are going to be talking about the explosion in used car prices, the automotive chip shortage, what it means for the economy, and we are not pulling any punches. We're going to tell you exactly what we really think and what the real causes of this are and our opinions, at least in my opinion, as we move forward into a brand new year, 2022. And joining us tonight is professional car buyer Ryan Walker. Ryan, you purchase cars for a living, and there was a report that came out this week, about a week ago, from KPMG saying that used car prices are likely to, plummet severely in the new year. What are your thoughts on where we're at right now? Let's get an assessment from you on the used car market, because we want to not only inform people about what's going on, but also help equip them with the tools and the knowledge they need to make sure they don't get burned if they go to buy a used vehicle right now.
Yeah, well, the market right now is just real crazy. It's largely caused in a lot of media and whatnot, just because of the fact that every 10 minutes you get hit with some post saying that used car prices are going through the roof and everybody should sell their car because they can get so much more money for it now than they would before, which is true. But what that also causes is a lot of people will go online and then post their cars for, upwards of like $5,000, $10,000 more than what they're actually worth. And then just by doing that, more people see it. And then overall, you can artificially inflate the price that way. Obviously, because there's a chip shortage, there's a lot more people kind of looking to get into used cars that are only maybe a year or two old, because of the fact that if they lease or they get a new car every few years, like a lot of people do, they don't have access to it. So they'll have to go for something that's on the used market instead of something that's like a brand new car. So that obviously drives up the price of getting new ones because they're in a shorter, year or two old cars because they're in such high demand. But because of that, also every other thing, it just all goes downhill from there, and everything gets more expensive as the time goes on.
So let's just backtrack a little bit, because this can be a complicated thing to wrap your head around. But in a nutshell, this all started, this market disruption in used car pricing and new car pricing because of the COVID pandemic, right? And this disrupted supply chains. And can you kind of give me an idea of how you see this whole thing and where it started and how we got here?
Well, largely, like, it would be because of the chip shortages is the main thing that affects most brands. Like, I mean, where I work at a Jaguar Land Rover dealership, there's only maybe a handful of 3 to 4 coming in a month. Whereas before,
new cars,
yeah,
3 or 4 new cars only.
Yeah, typically. But there, previously it would be something where you could fill the entire showroom and have half of the dealership be completely new cars. Whereas now you can't do that. There's not enough stock. But if you're looking at other dealerships now, specifically, you're seeing them kind of come back from that. Like Toyota specifically is kind of on the forefront of coming back 100%. Even with just the plant in Woodstock, you can see that they're going back up to almost full production. But there's still other companies that are far behind, and that alone they'll drive their used car prices up still until everybody can get back on the same page of, being at full production, having everything that you need for a brand new car. And then you're not having to backtrack or settle on a used.
So when I've been driving by new car dealerships over the past week, I've noticed like some manufacturers seem to have, some dealers seem to have some inventory.
Mhm.
But I drove by a Chevrolet dealership, and it was like literally it looked empty, like they had
Yeah,
nothing.
Chevy like has been hit pretty hard with the chip shortage side of things. They have a lot of stuff that's just sitting around right now that is, waiting on ECUs or anything else that they kind of need for that. But again, eventually they'll kind of get back into the swing of things as well and be able to um, create more new cars, obviously, and have more of them for sale. But you'll see, like, even like another dealer that you'll see, or a brand that you'll see kind of losing a lot of cars soon is probably going to be something like Kia and Hyundai. They haven't been affected too much over the past little bit, but now they're going to start running into it. You're starting to see them have more of a wait time on trying to get a brand new car, especially if you want to get something that's not just an Elantra or a Forte. And then if you want something that's higher trim, even that's going to be even harder. So that'll get progressively worse.
Yeah, I did notice when driving by some Hyundai Kia dealerships, they did seem to have a fair amount of inventory to sell, new cars in the
Yeah.
lots that I saw. So they seemed to be in pretty good shape. And I know Toyota, you mentioned their production was cut by about 40% worldwide
Yep.
at the height of this chip shortage. They've been fighting back, and they're getting back into, well, an area where they're almost back to full production. So they're coming back online. But so with the shortage of new vehicles, this is what has been driving the used car market.
Yeah, because like I said, there's a large base of clients that would typically switch out of a car every 1 to 2 years, typically through things like leases. But even some people are financing now because of the way that the market has been over the past probably about a year. There's a lot of people who have been able to get into a used car and then drive that used car for the duration of how long it takes for them to get a new car in some cases.
And I've been hearing that some of these used cars, people are buying used cars and they're actually appreciating in value. So they're buying them for this price. And then over the past year, they've been able to sell them for more than they paid. Is that
Yeah,
true?
yeah, 100%. Yeah. A lot of stuff like that has happened. A lot of people are making money off their leases right now. Anybody who's been able to lease maybe like a higher end Lexus, or especially Lexus, or anything like a CRV or a RAV4 or anything like that. A lot of people are able to get out of their leases, and then it only costs them what it was in gas and oil, and they might even get a check for $4,000 or $5,000 in their pocket, and they got to drive that car for a while. So there's a lot of that going on, and then even just overall the prices of cars has gone up. Like at our dealership, we had a Volkswagen Golf pop up on our website that was from 4 years ago that was no longer available, and it posted it for the price that it was 4 years ago. And people were calling like crazy because at this time, like for a Golf of the same year with the same kilometers for sale now, it's about $2,500, $3,000 more than what it was for sale 4 years ago.
That's crazy. That's unprecedented, really. I don't know when I've ever heard of that ever happening.
Yeah, well, the prices of things have just like gone up like crazy. And then even in the way of like performance cars or more iconic performance cars, the prices of those have gone up a lot, even just through like popularity of car culture now and seeing things like that. So things like 350Zs and G35s are what used to be maybe 4 or 5 years ago cars that were worth $4,500, $5,000. Now they're like a $10,000 car, and then you get it at a dealership, and then that's an even more marked up price because of the fact that it's hard to get performance cars now brand new. They're even more expensive, so you're still seeing stuff like that sell for $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 on a dealership lot.
So what you're saying is you're seeing this price explosion where prices of used vehicles have increased as much as 40% or more, maybe even 50% over the past year. You're seeing it right across the price spectrum, from the newer used vehicles all the way down to some of the cheaper stuff.
Yeah, some cheaper stuff is like affected by the chip shortage, obviously, just because of the fact that it all goes downhill. If your 2015 is worth more, inevitably what's going to happen is your 2002 is still going to be worth a little bit more. But like I said, that kind of tracks back to the price of some of the stuff that people post And then that just artificially inflates the price online because of the fact that you get hundreds of thousands of people just posting their car for $5,000 to $10,000 more than what it's really worth. And you'll see that with more of the older cars as well. You'll see there's one today was somebody with like a 2015 Acura RDX, and he wants like $34,000 for it, and it was about a $40,000 car brand new, and typically it would be for sale on a dealership lot for about 20 grand. So he's got it posted for about $10,000 more than what the market would usually be. And that's something I deal with like every single day. And there's hundreds of people who post their stuff for astronomically more. And then, how the average consumer just looks for the highest price that they can find online, and then they post their car for that.
So difficult and maybe not even responsible to give people advice on whether they should sell their car or buy a used car right now, because there's no way to know exactly what the market is going to do, because anything could happen, right? It's like the stock market could go up, could go down.
Yeah. Like if you have a
right?
spare car or something like that, I'd highly suggest selling it because right now you will get more money for it than you will in, a year or two. But if you only have one car right now and the amount of money you're getting back isn't going to get you into something that's worth getting into and, driving, you'll still be paying more for it at that point. I'd suggest to avoid buying used cars if you're just wanting to try and take advantage of the market stuff. But again, like if you need a car, buy a used car. You're going to be happier buying a used car versus a new car anyway. The prices on them, are pretty good. And now with the way that prices have gone, financing rates have gotten a little bit better as well. So it's still a good time to buy, and it's going to be, you'll still get some pretty quality vehicles, especially because there's a lot more almost choice in some things at different dealerships. Like there's more weirder cars and different cars that dealerships wouldn't usually pick up that is going to be available to you now, that somewhere where you can trust to go and buy it versus just out of somebody's driveway.
So if there's not if we don't have enough used vehicles right now to sort of satisfy the market, and then the new car production starts to come back online, but we haven't had new vehicles selling at the same level, won't that really mean that even a year from now, like there's going to still be a little bit of a shortage of used vehicles because you haven't had the input of used stuff? I mean, I don't know that this prediction of a dramatic 30% or 40% drop in prices sometime in the coming years is realistic. I can't see that happening myself. I think the prices are likely to remain high for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but I do see it dropping quite dramatically once everything goes back up to online, because of the fact that you're going to lose that entire market of people who would typically lease a car every year or two. So you're losing, and that's quite a big chunk of what's taking up so much of that 1 to 2 year old used car market right now. So once that pops up, you'll have a low amount of, between 2019s to say 2023s or whatever, in the coming future or whatever. But once those kind of come onto the used market, they'll stay at a higher price just due to the fact that there's a smaller amount of them, especially if it's something like it's a last year of a body style or whatever. They'll be more valuable at the end of the day, but you'll see the prices of just the regular cars like the 2016s where there's still the same amount of them, a few lost every year to accidents or rust or whatever. But you'll still see those come down quite a bit because of the fact is that it's only going to be the 1 to 2 year old cars that I see that are going to be staying at these higher prices.
And I guess we have to remember as well that some of the price increase has been fueled by inflation, which is the result of government printing more and more and more money, which was partly because of COVID relief and because of just the government direction right now, not only in Canada, but in many countries around the world. So the money supply has increased. That always fuels inflation. And we're seeing it in everything from gasoline to groceries to new and used car prices as well. So that's not going away anytime soon either. So
yeah, well, that's definitely an aspect of it to think about. Also, dealership premiums is another really big thing. Like on a new Land Rover, you can be paying an extra $50,000 for a brand new Defender, whereas before you wouldn't have had to pay that if there wasn't a shortage of them. I believe it's around 50,000. I'd have to quadruple check, but I know it's quite a large sum to get some of their more higher demand vehicles like a Defender. And then you can even see there's been lots of posts of other dealerships that have posted, like even on Toyotas and stuff, like $5,000-$6,000 extra that you are having to pay just due to the fact that there's a shortage of them. So it's that's another thing that's going to drive the price of those vehicles specifically up, due to the fact that everyone legitimately is paying more for that car right now because of what time, like during this market. So when they sell those 2 to 3 years down the line, they're going to still consider those premiums in the price of the car when they sell it.
So I'm not quite sure I follow what you're saying. So if you're paying more for the vehicle right now, what's going to happen a year or two from now if you're purchasing a vehicle that is in short supply and you're paying a premium price later?
It'll be worth more than it would be like if you weren't to have to pay a premium on it, due to the fact that it's going to be in higher demand because there's less of them. So like if you get a Toyota 4Runner right now, it's a very high demand vehicle. There's not a crazy amount of them. There's people who can, like you said, get into a lease, sell it, and make money on it. So in a year or two from now, when you've bought that Toyota 4Runner and you paid that extra $5,000-$6,000 on top of it just for the premium, when that person goes to sell that car, they're going to take into consideration that they paid an extra $5,000-$6,000 for that car at the time of purchase. So that.
But if you have other new vehicles coming on the market and they've increased the production of, say, RAV4s and the newer model year, wouldn't that suppress pricing for your vehicle, which might be a model year older but very similar? Like,
it will, but you're still dealing with the fact that people are going to pay more for the car. So the more expensive the vehicle it is, the more money it's going to be later on down the line in most senses, based off of markets. Like if you're not talking about a Chrysler or a Dodge product, if you're talking about like a Toyota, that tends to hold its value. You only lose so much every year. You'll end up getting more money for it versus like in, say, like a 2023 Toyota 4Runner, where you're not paying a premium on it. Once you see the depreciation overall is going to be less than what it would be on something like a 2021 or a 2022, where there was only, say, 500,000 made versus a million or however much.
I guess the market will also be affected by fleet vehicle sales, rental car company sales, because a lot of companies with fleets are running older vehicles that they would have normally traded in for, to get into newer stuff. And the same with rental car companies. As soon as the inventory becomes available, they're going to want to get rid of some of these cars they've been sitting on longer than they normally would, because they don't want to pay for the maintenance. They don't want to pay for more repairs. They want to get into the newer stuff to keep their costs in line with their business model and their business plans, right?
Yeah, and obviously those always affect the market. You'll see that specifically in things like Hyundai Elantras. But overall, you can differentiate between the two quite a bit. You lose a lot of value by having an X rental car. Even having just commercial use on it from a business is still very, it hurts when you see that on a Carfax. So you'll see a bit of a differentiation still. Like obviously the fleet vehicles will still be cheaper than the other ones, but the market won't change anything too crazy, just due to the fact that it's still the same amount of cars out there. It'll just be flooded for a little while with things like Hyundai Elantras and Chevy Cruzes.
And I'm going to ask your opinion on something, and this is a little bit political, maybe a lot political. When it comes to a lot of this stuff surrounding this chip shortage, I'm very skeptical. And I've read a lot of things about what caused this chip shortage. I've heard things like the auto companies, when COVID hit and the lockdowns hit and all this stuff started to unfold with COVID, that they canceled their orders for chips because they expected production was going to tank. I've heard that it's because so many people were at home, working from home, the demand for computers went up, so demand for semiconductors and chips went up, so the car companies couldn't secure enough supply to keep production rolling. But what I've been seeing forgive me if I sound like a conspiracy theorist,
Mhm.
but it seems to me that governments around the world have been, they're reshaping the auto industry. Every auto company gets these massive government grants, tax breaks, incentives to produce here, produce there, set up a factory over in this country or in this state or in this province. These car companies have become almost like controlled in some sense by governments. And as we see this huge shift toward electric vehicles, and it just seems to me like there's almost a war, has been a war for a number of years now on the automobile and the automobile industry. And I have to wonder, and give me your opinion. Maybe this is a little too far out there for you, but it seems to me like maybe some of this is coming from central planning. Maybe that this is partly intentional.
I'm not too sure about that. I don't think it would be something intentional due to the fact that those companies would lose such an astronomical amount of money. If there wasn't the shortage, they would continue to probably keep functioning. I'm just not really sure how to respond to that.
It's a hard thing to wrap your head around, but I see governments trying to reshape this industry. And since this whole thing has started to unfold, I've seen dramatic changes in the way the companies do business, the way they market their products. Everything is a response to government. It's not a response to market forces anymore. Government is controlling everything. In a way, government is now is controlling production, not just the Canadian government or the US government, governments around the world. And they are dictating how these companies operate. They want them to embrace electric vehicle production. They want sustainable production plans and production goals. Whether you agree with, the approach the governments are taking or not, it seems to me that governments are taking steps, doing things to make these companies conform, to submit, to do what they want them to do. And I don't think that, with countries, even Canada, getting ready to ban gasoline powered vehicles, period, I'm thinking that there might be some small agenda here. An element of this is government saying, we don't care if gasoline powered cars, our production is cut. It drives the price up. It makes them more difficult for people to buy. We don't want them anyway. And we want to change this industry. And this is one way to drive that. It's just like putting taxes on gasoline to drive the price of gasoline up, to make people want to. If the price of gas goes up, it makes electric vehicles more attractive. If the price of the vehicle itself goes up, it makes other vehicles more attractive.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from that, but the electric car industry is hurting just as bad as the gas or diesel industry for cars, if not worse. If you look at how much production of electric cars, yes, they're going up because they're making more models and things like that. It's becoming more normal to see something like an electric truck now. And I think that would have happened whether COVID was going on or not, honestly. And I don't think that it's a government controlled thing. More than because if you look at the numbers, it's the amount of electric cars that you could get, a year or two ago. If you look at like Teslas, or even if you look at anything that Ford or any of those guys have put out, the amount that's produced today is still much less just due to the chip shortage. So if it were something that was trying to be pushed on people, they'd more than likely have it so that the electric cars were the cars that were getting the attention and getting the chips and everything. But with the way that everything kind of works in the way of buying a new car now, is everybody orders what they want out of a book, essentially. So if the market was screaming about wanting electric cars, everybody would be buying electric cars right now when they're coming into a dealership. Like if they came into Jaguar, they'd want to buy an I-Pace or something like that. But still lots and lots of people just come in and they order a gas car. Like they order a standard RAV4, they order a Corolla. So if it was a government controlled thing. Like obviously the electric car is like the new hot topic item that everybody wants to flash around in their advertisements. And the government can promise all they want that they're going to get rid of cars by X date or whatever, but it's not really ever going to work like that. People are going to need to drive cheaper vehicles. Not everybody can afford an electric car at this stage. The old ones are hard to maintain. They're expensive. They don't last nearly as long. If you try and buy an older Tesla, your battery life is cut down quite a lot. Most of the time it degenerates over time, and you're going to have quite a hefty repair bill when you have to replace that battery. And then even then, who knows how good that recycled battery is unless you shelled out all the money to get a brand new battery. And then at that.
Oh, we lost Ryan there, but he will be back. So used car prices, where are they going in 2022? Very difficult to say. I still think that the governments around the world are controlling and manipulating the companies largely with tax grants, with and he's back. We lost you there for a second, Ryan. I was just saying, I still think that the automotive industry is largely government controlled. We're seeing more central, a more global approach to the industry. All these companies are not, you think about General Motors, Chrysler, they're global in scope, not just American companies or North American companies anymore. They haven't been for a long time. And they're being influenced by governments around the world and controlled largely as well. And yes, I think you're right though. I mean, they still are private corporations, and so they are trying to adjust to the chip shortage by sourcing chips and setting up, even in some cases, their own chip manufacturing facilities. But it's taking them time to do that. And I don't know. It just seems to me like there's been a war on the gasoline powered car industry and cars in general, because even with electric vehicles, I'm not sure that governments want individuals owning their own vehicles, even in the future.
The way I look at it, it's governments offering to give free money to a car company to invest in a certain department. So obviously they'd take it. At that point, you'll obviously see much more revolutionary steps in the way of like electric cars due to the fact that governments are just throwing money at it. And that's how they'll push an agenda, obviously. And if that's what they want to do, I mean, that's what they're spending the money on. Unfortunately, people may disagree with that. Like I personally think that electric cars aren't the best way to go. I think that you could go to a hybrid car, or not hybrid, sorry, a hydrogen car. And that would make a lot more sense, but that's a whole other topic. But I wouldn't see it as government control, more as they're choosing to put money in certain places. And then because of that, you're seeing an increase in it. You'd see the same thing in it if the government were to throw more money at diesel technology. You'll see more and more people buying diesel cars because they'd become a little better, maybe quieter, a little less rough to drive around in because of the way that the motor's set up without having spark plugs and it's all just compression. It could be anything like that. If it became more viable, same thing as if the government just threw a bunch of money at gas technology, I'm sure that they'd make motors that were much more efficient and we'd have astronomically better gas mileage, tons of stuff like that. But unfortunately, they'd rather put all their eggs in one basket most of the time and throw it into electric.
Well, I guess my only point, the main point I'm trying to make is that what we're seeing in part here with the impact on used car prices and new vehicle prices and inventory levels is it's because government has been controlling labor supply through because of lockdowns. They've been and chip supply chains because of labor disruptions, lockdowns, all these different measures that they've been putting in place globally. Mm-hmm. And we've ended up with a sort of a planned economy as opposed to a market-driven economy. And we end up with what? Shortages, which is what always happens when you get a planned economy and you get unintended consequences. And we're seeing the effects of that now. But we don't want to keep going down that rabbit hole. Let's just get your opinion. What's the smart move right now then? Just to clarify for people, in case they kind of missed what you said earlier. What's the smart move? Is it a seller's market? Is it a smart time to sell your used vehicle? Should you even bother trying to buy one right now with the prices the way they are?
Yeah, like I said, if you have a spare car or you're no longer needing to drive because of working at home and whatnot, becoming so much more normal, it wouldn't be a bad idea to sell your vehicle. You can always go into something a little bit cheaper, something a little bit older that's still going to last you as long. I mean, I've been working in the auto industry for however long now, and I still haven't ever bought a new car. I drive a 2002 Honda CRV. It's just you can buy an older car, spend a little bit of money on it, and have something nice to ride around in from your point A to point B. Not everybody needs to drive around in a brand new Mercedes. As for buying a used car now, if you have to get a new car, you have to get a new car. So you'll have to deal with the way the market is. If you're just thinking about upgrading, it evens itself out almost. If you're trading something in, you're going to get more money for the car that for your trade in now than you would generally. So it kind of helps offset the extra costs that you're paying on top of that for your new vehicle. So that'll all kind of come out in the wash more than likely. If you're looking at just buying a newer, like a used vehicle, just straight cash, especially something 1 to 2 years old, or even financing something, with the wait times that are available on brand new cars now, a lot of the time I just suggest waiting, due to the fact that largely it's dealerships putting people in things so that they'll stay happy. People buying it with more money than brains a lot of the time when it comes down to those 1 to 2 year old cars. And you can just survive with what you have, or if you do decide you want to get into something that's within that 1 to 2 year range, it might just be worth waiting the month or two to just get the brand new one with the better financing rates, and if you can get it without a premium, then even better.
So if you're thinking of buying a new vehicle, is it smart to buy now or wait until sometime in 2022 as production levels come back online? And what would you end up buying? Would it be like I guess it depends on the manufacturer, whether it would be like a 2021 that they're just finally putting chips into, or a 2022 that's being produced new?
You'll more than likely want to spend the money on getting a 2022 that has shown up, just due to the fact that you'll see a little bit of a flood in the market with some of those vehicles that have been sitting all this time and waiting for chips. So you'll see more of that pop up, but you'll see that coming in around the same time as when you could order in a 2022 or a 2023, whichever we're on. So at that point, you could get into something and, wait just a little bit extra, get that newest model, and again, take advantage of the financing rates and whatnot. But the other thing is because of that market going to be getting flooded soon, if they don't, just chop up the amount of stuff coming in, you'll see the price of them drop. So you might be able to get a good deal on something that's been sitting in a field for 3.5 months waiting for a chip. That's maybe a weird spec or something that not a lot of people want. If you're going to buy that 2021 that's been sitting for a while, it would probably be smarter to buy that if it was something you're going to keep for a long time. Yeah, anytime that you're buying something that's you're going to keep for a long time, it's always better to go used. You've already lost that chunk of depreciation most of the time. And then in this case, because of it's been sitting for so long, obviously there will be price adjustments on that car more than likely. And just with the market, you can't charge a full price for something that there's 100 of, and then there's still, again, you can go to a 2022 now or a 2023 or whatever. So obviously the price will be adjusted for that. So you could get into something that's still a brand new car that has that's already lost some value that you can kind of take advantage of. And you could also be in the same situation of just buying something that's used. Again, if you're going to keep it, you've already lost. You're missing out on losing that big chunk right when you drive it off the lot. But if you're the type of person who wants to change out of their car every 1 to 2 years, just lease something brand new. There's no point in paying cash and taxes over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. So even though the prices are up, there is opportunity and will be even more opportunity maybe in 2022 to get some deals.
Yeah, no, 100%. There definitely will be. And it'll just, everything will pan out in the wash, like I said, and the car prices, again, they'll eventually just go back to kind of normal. And other than that, the only thing that should adjust is just supply and demand.
And what are people interested in buying? Is the market still heavily focused on SUVs and pickup trucks?
Largely SUVs. Pickup trucks have cooled off. I think largely probably because it's more into winter time around here. The States is always really hot for the side of pickup things. A lot of stuff gets shipped now too when it comes down to trucks, SUVs, especially higher end SUVs. Like people will come in and try and buy brand new Range Rovers or Land Rovers just for the fact that they're going to resell it in the States and ship it over there. Obviously, the dealership tries to stop that because it's not morally right, but people do it. A lot of bigger Toyota SUVs, like I was saying, like 4Runners and stuff like that are really hot. Those get shipped off to the States like crazy as well. So largely SUVs is really where it's at right now for that type of stuff. And then smaller like economies, like 4-doors, like Civics especially have gone up in price quite a lot, as well as Hyundais. Pretty much every Hyundai you want to buy now, if you're buying an Elantra, you're looking at about $20,000. Doesn't really matter what year or any trim or anything. Everybody wants $20,000.
And where we're at right now, new car dealerships, depending on the manufacturer and the brand, some of them are only getting like 2 or 3 new vehicles a month.
Depending on where you go. Yeah. Like obviously with Jaguar Land Rover, it's a little harder because all of our stuff, shows up off a boat. They're already a lower number production car company versus like Civic, like Honda or something like that. So there's already less of them being made, as well as the fact that it already takes longer to make the cars. So we're looking at the fact that, chip shortages, even just trying to get certain parts and stuff like that, because we're using higher end stuff, it makes it harder to put these things together and have them ready to go immediately. But if you look at something like Honda or Hyundai or even Toyota, it's largely chip shortages for them. And they'll be, somebody like Toyota is going to be coming on the upswing now. And, you'll see their used prices go down and their new prices kind of balance back out. And as production increases, and you can go back there and buy a brand new RAV4 without it being a big deal.
So at your dealership, are you seeing people coming in and trying to order vehicles? And you must have a backlog of people that want new Jaguars, Land Rovers, higher end.
Yeah, pretty much everything that shows up at the dealership is already sold. Like our showroom is empty. We don't have any cars in there. If it shows up on a truck, it's very rare. Like I said, like last time we had some stuff come off a truck, only 2 of the cars were not sold. Everything else was pre-sold vehicles that people would come and pick up either the same day or the next.
And I would think that, and I think, we're seeing it with some of the dealers in the Ottawa area and in Southern Ontario. A lot of dealers are spending less on advertising because they just don't have the inventory to sell anyway. So there's some advertising going on just to maintain brand presence, I think. But that has an impact on the economy overall as well, right? Because you're not seeing this velocity of money, the outflow of money on marketing expenses and other things from dealerships, which really, car dealers, the car industry has always fueled the economy in a pretty heavy way. What are you seeing at your dealership? Are they spending about the same, more or less on advertising?
Probably less at this point. I haven't been there for a super long time and I'm not really involved in that aspect of things, but they obviously, they're not throwing billboards up or anything like that. We got a sign that we're looking for cars. And then they make some videos that they'll post on social media, but that's about it from as far as I know. Yeah. Excuse me. But more than likely you're spending less. With our dealership, like we don't have like a shortage of used cars, really, luckily, due to what I do for work. And then the other guy I work with, we're able to keep on top of that quite well and make sure that we always have stuff in stock and we have like a wide variety of things. With our dealership being a Jaguar Land Rover, we can carry anything from a Toyota Corolla all the way up to, a GTR or an R8. So,
right. So you're actively searching for quality used vehicles, and for your dealership in particular, what stuff are you buying on a day-to-day basis? What are you looking for? Maybe somebody out there has a car they want to sell.
Pretty much anything that's 2014 plus, I pretty much look for. Whenever I put my filters in, it's 2014 with under 150,000 kilometers. Pretty much anything that falls under that, I am able to usually pay pretty good money for. Obviously, we prefer to get some higher end stuff as well, like Land Rovers, Jaguars, they'll pay quite a bit for. as well as getting into like, your higher end stuff like Lexuses and Infinities and things like that. There's a lot of demand for that type of a vehicle because we have a lot of clientele who come through that are looking for that stuff. But we also buy anything that's like a 2016 Honda Civic or a 2014 or a 15 Honda Civic, Hyundai Elantras, Kia Rondos. I bought everything from Kia Soul to even a Prius. Anything pretty much is up for grabs at this point. And at our dealership, again, like I said, we can carry a wide variety of things. So we can have a Honda Civic and we'll also buy your GTR.
So you're sourcing, you're trying to find vehicles pretty much anywhere you can, used vehicles, quality used vehicles, including from private sellers. So if someone wanted to reach you to explore maybe having you buy their car, how would they reach you?
They would either call me on my, they'd email me at rwalker@jlrlondon.ca, or they could just look me up on Facebook, just Ryan Walker, and I have a Facebook page for that they could just message me on. As well as if you just go right directly on the website, Jaguar London or Land Rover London, you'll see that my contact information is right there.
Right. And again, you're not looking for like low end stuff. You want quality vehicles, 2014 or newer.
Yeah, like obviously we'll take stuff. We'll take older cars that have wear and tear on them. That's within reason. But unfortunately, I can't take cars that have rebuilt titles or have been hit 18 times in the rear. Each time was only $500, so it's not that bad of an accident. But it just all piles up and turns into something that it just makes the car worth less. But we'll take, again, like I said, anything. We'll take anything from a Hyundai Elantra to an R8 or anything like that.
So overall, are you optimistic about what 2022 is likely to bring in terms of the car market?
Yeah, it'll be good. Like everybody will be able to get whatever they want at that point. Things will go more back to normal. The people who would usually lease will be able to just kind of get back into that groove again, and that'll bring up a lot of sales and dealerships again, because it's quite a popular thing to do now, just lease versus buying a car. So you'll see lots more of that happens, and after they again get out of their lease, that car becomes a used car that is for sale for somebody else. Mm-hmm. Almost 90% of the time. So a lot of the time it's going to bring a lot of used back. It'll bring a lot of new back. It'll just bring everything kind of back up to par where it should be, and you'll see the prices come down on most cars, and you'll see the prices of things be more than they would be if we weren't in the situation. Like I said, if you buy something where there's only, again, half the production done, that car will be worth more now, realistically.
And just as we kind of get into the closing portion of this video, can you give people, I guess to start, who are selling their used vehicles, can you give them any tips on how they can make sure that they protect themselves, or make sure they don't get burned or do something stupid or leave money, lose money in the transaction? What's the smart way to approach selling your vehicle right now?
The best thing to do would be to come to somebody like me at a dealership, where you're going to be dealing with, you're not dealing with Joe Schmo with his car dealership on a trailer that could roll away tomorrow, or you're not dealing with just some random person you've met on the internet who's, trying to, buy your car and you have to wait on financing. Because the fact is, if you come and deal with somebody like me, it's safe, it's secure. We're just going to give you a check and it's not going to bounce. If you do have to sell it privately or have to sell it to somebody who's maybe not as trustworthy, always make sure that you get a certified check, make sure it's a bank draft. I'd highly suggest meeting that person when they come to pick up the car. I'd highly suggest meeting them at the bank and then immediately cashing the check before you let them take the car. I have lots of customers who do that, even with me, when we pick up vehicles. Obviously, be aware of liens on vehicles when you're buying or even selling. Be aware of how much you owe, because you don't want to get yourself into a deal where now suddenly you're having to pay $2,000 to sell your car. Some people may take advantage of that because they don't want to have the payments anymore, but it's all relative at the end of the day. Obviously, the biggest thing that I've seen going on with people getting kind of scammed is fake checks when they come and pick up vehicles, as well as when people are contacting you online, they get all your information about your car. They'll offer to pay you full asking price for it, and they just say, "Oh, you just have to pay for this one report," and then we'll do that. But in reality, it's just a scam to get your credit card information and charge you $50 to $60 for a report. That's not real. And these people are never going to come and buy your vehicle. Any dealership that's actually going to buy your car is going to be using Carfax, and they'll be doing it on their own dime. They're not going to make you pay for a Carfax on your own vehicle, just due to the fact that, we pay for a membership so we can just have unlimited amounts of them. So we use it every single day. So no one's going to ask you to pay for that.
And if you are selling your vehicle, how would you recommend people gauge pricing? How do they go about figuring out what they should really charge for their car so that it actually sells and they get the right amount of money for what they have?
Look at dealership pricing and be realistic about what car you own and what you have. What a lot of people don't consider is when you're buying a car from a dealership, you're getting a lot more than just the car. You're getting the option of getting into extended warranties. You're getting financing options that are done right there and then for you. You're getting, everything under the sun. Your car is going to be completely clean. It's safetied, and within a month it's not going to just break down. And if it does, you're taken care of. Versus if you just go and buy a car out of somebody's driveway, once you roll over the taillights warranty comes in. When they can't see your taillights anymore, they don't care. In most cases. So when it comes down to that, it's just when you're looking at how to price a vehicle out, the dealerships are always going to be on the upper end of that. So make sure you're always comparing to what trim vehicle you have, what model. Make sure you're always taking into fact that, like a manual transmission is less than an automatic, unfortunately, as much as more as I like a stick. Just things like that. And if you've had an accident in the car, it's going to, decrease the value of it. You have to take all those things into consideration when you're posting your car. Don't just go on Kijiji, look up 2016 Hyundai Elantra, and whichever one has the highest price be, okay, that's what I'm going to charge for it. Because it's more than likely a higher trim level that's never been in an accident that some old lady drove forever that came off a lease. And your car with a $6,000 hit on it with stings, dents, and scratches all over that place isn't worth the same. Right. So you just have to be realistic about what you own and make sure that when you're comparing your prices, look at what dealers are charging and just charge slightly less, just due to the fact that you're not offering the same type of service and safety and everything on top of that. You could be the nicest person in the world, but that's not appealing to everybody who's going to come and write you a check for a vehicle, because they're not going to get financing for it. More than likely, they're going to have to pay out of pocket.
Plus, at a dealership, especially like a high-end prestige dealership like a Jaguar dealership, when someone purchases even a certified used vehicle, pre-owned vehicle, you're getting a car that's been, they've gone over it, they've reconditioned it, they've fixed anything that might need fixing. They're going to stand behind it, right? So you're not just buying the car, you're buying some peace of mind as well. Exactly.
And like I said, it's a taillights warranty with anybody else that you buy it from. That's not a dealer. It's right when they can't see it, they don't care anymore. And especially with higher end cars, especially where things can go wrong. And there's quirky little weird things to take note of. And the thing is most people are ill-equipped to really look at a vehicle when there is a large chance of somebody hiding something from you. If you roll up to like I said, like a Jaguar Land Rover dealership, they're not going to be really hiding things from you. They're going to be upfront and honest with you. They've spent the money to make sure that this car is good when it rolls off the lot, because they don't want you to come back and have issues and cause problems. Whereas, like I said, Joe Schmo down the street doesn't care about the fact that, the rear brakes were supposed to be changed for the safety, but they didn't. That's your problem now. You own the car.
Mm-hmm. And on the flip side of that, if you're buying a used vehicle right now, same questions. How do you make sure you get the best price, protect yourself so that you're not paying too much, and protect yourself knowing that we're heading into possibly a little more stability in the new year, maybe more volatility.
Yeah, just shop around, make sure you're looking at everything around you. I always suggest looking at least 200 kilometers around you in a radius. And then that'll get you a pretty realistic sample size of what the market's like on that vehicle. You're not going to be getting very many discounts on vehicles right now. So just make sure that when you go in there, you're pretty happy with the price and you're going to be willing to finance that amount. Everything's in demand, and unfortunately, and that's part of the reason that drives the price up, is because there's no real discounts happening a lot of the time these days. So be happy with the price that's on there. You can obviously try and negotiate on it if it's maybe a unit that's been sitting longer. But if you're looking at something that's only maybe been there for a day or two, you're not going to see much, if anything, of a discount. At that point, again, just stay away from, sketchy dealerships. And if you do happen to be looking for a very, very specific car and that guy just happens to have it, make sure you go over it with a fine-tooth comb, take it to a reputable mechanic that so that they're not hiding anything. Make sure they give you the Carfax report and make sure it's a legit one so that you're not buying something that's a crashed mess. But that's largely what you should be doing.
I just want to put this up for a second. You mentioned sketchy dealerships, and this was the thumbnail for this video. And when I saw this, I just have to laugh because it looks like you and I are running a sketchy dealership ourselves. But I have to tell you, if we were actual used car dealers and ran a used car dealership, they would definitely be quality used cars.
Well, yeah, that's the only type of cars I sell, and that's the only type of cars I buy. Like I said, I drive a 2002 Honda CR-V. It's a quality vehicle.
I just think this makes me laugh when I look at it now. Just sketchy dealers, car dealers. Well, it's not a real dealership, folks. We don't run a dealership, but Ryan does buy cars for a Jaguar dealership. So if you need to contact him, he'll give you a good price. Well, anyway, I hope that you found that humorous.
I did.
I certainly did. Mm-hmm. Well, Ryan, thank you again for joining us on SST Sunday Night Live.
No problem.
It's been a pleasure. Okay. Greatly appreciated. I think that the information you provided tonight will help a lot of people. And it was a good interview and very insightful. So with that, folks, we're going to wrap things up, and that is it for tonight. And until next time, I am Rick Walker, reminding you, when you can't get to the car show, we will bring the car show to you online at SSTcarshow.com. Catch you on the flip side.
You're watching the Autos 360 Network.